More familiar. Today date is a day to be remembered because those of you who receive something from what I'm sharing will be the first day for the rest of your life. Now, there's a lot of sharing on YouTube. I don't see anyone sharing the message I have that I've been given. So it's got to be my message. Now, people may, I have seen things I've shared by other people after I shared it, but I haven't seen, I do not share things that I hear from other people. That's just not me. What I share is what I receive was from my heart, a God within me. That's what I'm sharing. Also, I'm from a different generation, so I have a unique perspective on a lot of things that the youth have no idea of. For example, most of you were not around before the civil rights era. I'm going to cover a little history here. Before the civil rights era you're familiar with started with Dr. King in the 50s. Actually, the Supreme Court decision 1954. I was almost a teenager then. So I remember a lot of things that happened. A lot of things. I can share with you what happened before civil rights and after civil rights. Before civil rights, we had self-respect as a people. Some things we just would not do. Of course, the people who mentor us, they weren't doing a lot of crazy things either. And so we lived a rather, I'll say, godly life. The neighborhood I grew up in, people next door was teachers, doctors in the neighborhood, dentists in the neighborhood. It was really one big family. If you got low on something, you can always borrow it. Everybody knew everybody. There was no skipping school in those days. Because if you were seen around the neighborhood during school time, and you better go and see what this neighbor wanted, because they won't know why you're not in school. And they will discipline you. They had that right. And you go home and get disciplined again. You know, they took discipline out of first they took it out of the schools, and then it was taken away from the parents. Somebody was telling you not to discipline your child. Do you know the Creator? He said those he loves, he disciplines. So we way out, we're way away from the way things should be. And part of me, I may sound, I'm getting distracted because I put no disruptions, but I'm still getting messages on this phone. So that's why I'm having a little hesitation to pause. But get to the point. All right, I'm going to speed up a little bit for those who are of that age, don't like slow talkers like me. We had everything we needed. We wanted jobs. We go in the community for jobs. We had people who owned businesses. That's the era I grew up in. So when the time came, when the community started, I would say, was actually destroyed because of the idea of integration. A lot of people wasn't with that because there's no history of any people wanting to mix or integrate with another people. There's no history of that. All this is the American experiment. That's what I'm thinking, the American experiment, because these people, my people, was brought from Africa. Now, don't think Africa's way away there sometime. No, Africa is not way across the water. Africa is right here. It was called another name. I'm not going to go through that. But Africa is a modern name for what it was called before. Okay? You got Southwest Africa, Northwest Africa, South Africa. So, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to say America was called Africa at one time. That's why when you go through your history and you study your census, they would just say Africa. If some of you can go that far in your census where they say your ancestors came from Africa. Now, I had the wonderful opportunity to know my grandfather and ask him questions. And I asked them about our past, our ancestry, because at the time they started teaching in the schools about the 70s that we're from Africa, and we never heard that. We never knew nothing like that prior to Kunta Kinte. Asked my grandfather about that. He said, he got indignant. He said, no, we never were slaves. And I did a research on my family history tree. Also, my grandfather told us that we came from North Africa. Go do your research of your family. Go to the genealogical library. People are there to help you. You need to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, then anyone can tell you who you are. And that's an image of what they want you to be. Black, colored, African Americans, Negro. This is not who you are. You want to know who you are, you need to find out who were your ancestors. Who were they called? What were they called? What country did they come from? Oh, there's so much to this. I can't teach you in a few minutes. I'm going to keep this short. I just want to see how many people really enjoy this message, so I be motivated to keep teaching on a daily basis. You know, I'm not coming for everyone. No, just a few people who have went through certain experiences, they can hear my voice. A lot of people can't even hear me. So I stopped getting upset when I don't get a lot of responses. I said, well, it's not time for them to hear. Now, when you learn who you are, you will know who everybody else is. But if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your ancestors, you are disconnected from humanity. You're disconnected from your Creator. Because one of the commandments given is that honor your father and mother. It don't mean just the one who gave you birth. It means generations and generations. It means your ancestors. It's very important that you know who your ancestors are. You find that you had no history of slavery. Now, don't get me wrong, slavery did exist, but not the way it's taught. most of the slavery was enslavement of white people. And they would tell you that in private. The reason they don't teach about it is because that's not something they want to experience. You know, whatever your reality is, you always talk about. For example, if you always frightened, things frighten you, then you're going to draw that energy to you that's going to make you frightened. All these people get so afraid of being stopped by the police. They're so afraid about being, you're going to get stopped by the police and it's not going to go well because of your fear. So you are what you think about, what you talk about, and what you claim is your reality. I advise you not to digest the image given to you. You need to get away from that tube. I'm telling you, that's an idiot box. I stopped watching it years ago. I don't mean I don't look at it, but the difference between looking and watching. You have to know what you're looking at. If you just an empty brain, then you're gonna believe everything that's said. You have no critical mind, critical thinking. Some people call it mathematical thinking. It's critical thinking. But if you don't know who you are, you can't think critical. You're lost in the wilderness. You're not even born yet. Because when you are born, and that can take any age, because nobody comes here knowing. But when you are born again, it just means a whole new world. Everything's become new. You thought the United States was a country. Oh, it's a corporation. You thought black was a color of a people. Oh, it's a status. All words take on a new meaning because you were living in the definitions of how someone defined the word. But when you're born again, everything is new. There's no hatred inside of you. People hate because of what they fear and don't know. When you know yourself, you know other people, and there's no hatred when you know them. Know their history. There's no hatred. But if you don't know yourself, you're going to hate yourself and people who look like you, and that's what's happening, unfortunately. Watch the movie Get Out. Let's talk about that movie. This young man didn't know who he was. He was trying to integrate. When you know who you are, you appreciate your own people. You don't try to integrate. What other people try to integrate? See, that's a program that's been given to you that other people have to accept you. That's a lie. You have to accept yourself. And if you let acceptance depend on other people, then you don't exist because you become a figment of their imagination. You know, all this negativity, all these false programs, movies, TVs, news, that's not who you are. But if you don't know who you are, you think that's you. It's a real traumatizing head job being done on us as a people. We haven't recovered for the most part. Can't you just look around and see people still living in a trauma? But you got to heal yourself. You got to go in prayer, whatever you need to do to learn who you are. The way I did it, I had a thirst for knowledge. I read everything I get my hands on, starting at a very young age, because I wanted to know. Let me tell you right now what I recommend families do. Family come together, put up the cell phones, cut off the TV, and just talk to each other. Find out what's going on in your children's life. What are they going through? You need to know these things. You need to know these things. Because if your child is going and being taught somewhere else, and you don't know what they're being taught, a person can come back from the schools that you don't know. What I'm saying is this: don't lose your child because you haven't taught him who they are. Because someone else is going to teach him something different. I found out recently that, and it's through personal experiences, that schools are teaching children, even, well, this was college, because he wasn't acting like that in high school, but college are teaching children to disrespect their parents. I found it out very recently. If your child know who they are, can't nobody trick them. Can't nobody give them any wooden nickels, as my grandparents used to say. They can't nobody give them nothing fake. But you got to know what's real, or you'll fall for the fakery every time. So I'm going to wind this up just by saying that those who are getting something from these YouTube, I did about over 100 short video before I was able to go live. You know, they require you to do so much for a couple of months before you can have live broadcasts. That's why I'm so happy to be here for however minutes I choose, because I paid my dues. I did 1 minute broadcast for 2 months. There's other ways I could have done it, but I chose to do it this way. I hope to build up an audience, people who would understand the message, because I'm not for everybody. But the message is really for everyone. No matter what your complexion, you need to know who you are. I'm talking to the people I identify with because we are the most ignorant of who we are. We'll walk around with symbols of death around our neck. Why do I say the cross is a symbol of death? Because if you look at it, it's not a cross. Look where the top line crosses. It's not in the middle. It's near the top. And if you was able to read the scriptures, it tells you that's a sword. That's why the Crusaders wore it on their shield. It's an instrument of death. It's a sword. Also a crucifix, because they say Jesus was crucified. Well, I'm not going to talk about religion because everybody had the freedom to worship anything they want to do. But if you know who you are, where you come from, can nobody trick you? And the worst type of trickery is not knowing your roots. But can't nobody really take that from you. After you get a certain age, you become responsible. As a child, man, I was glued to the TV set like everyone else. Because in my generation, we got the TV. So I was glued there like everyone else. But once I became adult, I didn't like a lot of things I saw. And I didn't know what was going on. So I started researching. Why is things like this? Why are things like that? A lot of things you're going to have to figure out for yourself because a lot of people are not going to tell you. And a lot of times your family don't even know because that's just, they grew up, they wasn't taught. But let me tell you a few things before I leave. Going a little more than I expected to. But all the hangings that you see, these people call themselves black. They call them black now, but they wasn't calling themselves black then. All the hangings you see, if you go back and look at them, you will see these people wasn't scoundrels. Most time they had on shirts and ties. So who were these people they was hanging? Your research will show you that these were the people who was passing on the knowledge. The bankers, the gurus of the day, the wealthy people of the day. Well, I'm gonna leave it there. Uh, and like I say, there's no hatred once you know who you are. People who spend the most hatred at you are the most ignorant, especially of themselves. Because perfect love takes away hatred. But if you don't love yourself, you don't love God. How can you go and say you love God and don't know who you are? It's impossible. If you don't love your kingly hair, your melanated skin, you don't know the beauty it represents, the divinity it represents. If you don't know that, you've been sold a false bill of goods. If you think that light skin is godly, straight hair is divine, you're a sinner of the worst kind. All right, that's it. I used to wear these colors: red, black, green, yellow. And I saw a flag with those colors on it that represent a pride, some type of, I'm not gonna go into it, but that's not me. I could keep wearing the colors, but I don't want to be identified with something that's not me. So I wear turquoise, light green. That's my ancestors' colors. Peace, everyone. Let me know your comments, what you think of the video. Yes. Give me the, what they call it? The ugly, good, and bad. Give it to me all. And that way I can improve. Constructive criticism is how we improve. Okay, thank you for watching.